The crimson stain of Saint-Clair. The storm had passed, but the rain left behind its damp perfume in the narrow streets of the French town of Saint-Clair. Stone gargoyles, glistening with moisture, crouched upon the high ledges of the cathedral, their grotesque faces perpetually frozen in sneers of mockery at the mortals who dared to pass beneath them. The cathedral, that great radiant monument of faith, rose above all else, its spires needling into the slate-gray sky like solemn accusations. Stained glass of jewel-toned brilliance stretched upward in panels of sacred geometry, casting faint kaleidoscopes of color upon the wet flagstones. Yet the windows themselves looked darker that evening, as though reluctant to let the light spill outward. It was within this cathedral, Saint-Clair du Ciel, that a body had been found 3 nights past, not torn, not ravaged, but lying lifeless beneath the flamboyant tracery of the rose window, a crimson stain blossoming across the marble floor like an unholy flower. The victim was no vagrant, nor even a parishioner. It was the cathedral's own master archivist, Benoit Valcourt, a man whose entire existence had been consumed by his devotion to the ancient manuscripts stored in the vaulted library of the chapter house. The town whispered of curses, of relics best left undisturbed, and of secrets that lived as deeply in the cathedral's shadows as the bats that slept among its rafters. It was into this atmosphere of suspicion that Inspector Lucien Armand was summoned. Armand was a man given to silences and grave reflection, a skeptic by habit, though even he felt a tremor of unease as he crossed the nave for the first time. The cathedral seemed alive with whispers. The choir stalls, their wood darkened by centuries of touch, loomed in ornate solemnity. The vaultings soared above him like frozen waves, rib upon rib of stone chasing one another toward the heavens. Yet it was the rose window, flamboyant in its fiery design, that seized his gaze. As the sun lowered, its blood-red light spread downward, spilling precisely onto the spot where Valcourt had been found, as though the window itself had borne witness to the crime. Armand met with Abbé Séverin, the cathedral's custodian. The abbé was a gaunt figure with eyes sunk deep into hollows, his black cassock rustling like dry leaves as he walked. Monsieur Valcourt, the abbé said, voice low, was found by the verger at Matins. There was no sign of forced entry, only the blood. He gestured toward the floor, now scrubbed through faint discoloration lingered, like a shadow that water could never wash away. "What was Valcourt doing here so late?" Armand asked. The abbé's thin lips tightened. "Research," he claimed. He had been consumed with deciphering the Codex Obscura, an illuminated manuscript sealed in our archives for centuries. I advised caution, but he was relentless. Armand followed the abbé into the chapter house. Here the Gothic grandeur narrowed into scholarly austerity, Long wooden desks, iron-barred windows, shelves upon shelves of leather-bound tomes, their spines cracked with age. Yet even in this scholarly refuge, the architecture exhaled its Gothic breath. High-pointed arches framed the vaults, and delicate tracery ran like veins across the stonework. The codex lay upon a desk, open to a page that shimmered with gilded illumination. Serpentine letters, written in an archaic hand, wound their way around a miniature of Saint Michael weighing souls. The paint was vivid, the figures disturbingly alive, as though their eyes followed the intruder. Valcour was found with this, the abbé murmured. He believed the text concealed some hidden truth. I confess I feared his obsession would consume him. Armand bent to study the parchment. The Latin was dense, but fragments spoke of blood sanctified, of light captured in glass, of penance bound to stone. It seemed less a theological treatise and more an incantation. He closed the book. Was there anyone who might have wished him harm? The abbé hesitated. Valcour was not beloved. His manner was harsh. He quarreled with the choir master, Monsieur Duret, over the misplacement of music folios. He accused the mason, Guillaume Lefebvre, of pilfering from the crypt. And he distrusted me, I think, for wishing him to wrest his work. That night Armand lodged within the cloister, for the abbé urged him not to leave. The cathedral keeps her own counsel, the priest whispered. Better to remain inside than wander under her gaze from without. The cloister's quadrangle was hushed, the arcade arches framing the moonlight. Armand lay restless, listening to the wind battering the gargoyles. Near midnight a sound stirred him, the faint groan of stone, as if something within the walls themselves moved. Rising, lantern in hand, he followed the sound into the nave. There, amid the half-light, he saw a figure kneeling beneath the rose window. It was Monsieur Duret, the choir master, his face uplifted, pale and feverish. When confronted, he startled like a guilty man. "Inspector," he stammered, I come here to pray." "At midnight?" Armand asked. Duret's eyes darted to the rose window. "You do not understand. The light, it burns with a power. Benoit said the glass held trapped spirits, that the saints themselves could speak through it if the proper words were uttered." "And did you believe him?" "I told him it was blasphemy," Duret said. "Yet, when I stand here, I feel something gaze back. Perhaps he awakened what should have remained still." Armand dismissed him, though unease remained. He slept little that night, and in the morning he questioned Lefebvre, the mason. A broad man with hands of stone and mortar, Lefebvre laughed bitterly. "Valcour accused me, said I stole from the crypt. What would I want with bones and dust? I build, Inspector, I do not steal. Yet I will say this, he was no innocent. I saw him slip down to the crypt often, clutching his lantern as though hiding from heaven itself." Armand descended there himself. The crypt smelled of damp stone and age, vaulted ceilings pressed low, and carved effigies of bishops lay in eternal repose upon sarcophagi. In one alcove he found a ladder left leaning against the wall, and upon the flagstones a curious smear, red wax as from a candle. Nearby, a small scrap of parchment bore strange writing, half Latin, half cipher. That night, while the wind howled, Armand returned to the chapter house to study the Codex Obscura. Hours passed, the candles burning low, until his eyes caught a phrase that seemed to leap from the page. Sanguis revelabit lumen. Blood shall reveal the light. At that moment, the great bells tolled midnight, their clangor echoing through the stone ribs of the cathedral. And with each strike the rose window blazed crimson, as though set afire from within. Armand rushed to the nave. There, before the flaming rose, stood Abbé Séverin, his face pale as bone. In his hand he held a small vial, dark liquid within. "Inspector," he whispered, "do you see?" Valcourt was right. The Codex spoke truth. The window is no mere glass, but a vessel. When blood is offered, it awakens. I tried to stop him, but he gave too much. That is why he fell. The light devoured him. "You mean," Armand said slowly, "he bled himself to fuel some illusion." The abbé's eyes were wild, yet reverent. Not illusion, revelation. The saints themselves burned within that glass. I have seen their forms moving in the fire. He lifted the vial as if to pour it. "Enough!" Armand strode forward, wrenching the vial from him. It shattered upon the floor, spilling harmlessly. The crimson glow of the rose window faltered, flickered, and died, leaving only moonlight. The cathedral fell silent once more. In the days that followed, Armand pieced the truth together. Valcourt, intoxicated by the Codex, had indeed slit his own vein in secret rites, offering blood to the window in belief that it concealed divine revelation. When the blood loss overcame him, he collapsed upon the marble. Abbé Séverin, arriving too late, sought to conceal this madness for fear the church would condemn them both. Yet guilt had unhinged him, and his midnight vigils betrayed him. When Armand left Saint-Clair, the townsfolk still whispered of the curse. The cathedral remained, its towers and tracery untouched, though those who passed at sunset swore the rose window still flared red upon the floor, as though remembering the blood that once fed it. And Inspector Armand, though a man of logic, carried with him always the memory of that fleeting blaze, that dreadful beauty which seemed less of earth than of some other worldly fire. The gargoyles watched him depart, their stony grimaces unchanged, as though mocking him forever, believing he might wrest secrets from their ancient gaze. And within Saint-Clair du Ciel, the shadows lengthened,